Hello everybody, my name is Jackson. I wanted to make this quick video about troubleshooting a Honda Ruckus that's been sitting for a long time. This is a 2012 Honda Ruckus, however this process applies to all models of Honda Ruckus from 2002 to friggin' 2021. In this case, the bike had been sitting for a very long time and was not starting. So I wanted to go over my, my troubleshooting process and how I eventually got it running. The first thing I needed was a new battery because it had been sitting for a very long time, and motorcycle batteries, they don't like to sit dead for a while. So that was the first order of business. Now the electric starter was working and it would crank over but it would not start. It then dawned on me to check if it had spark. So I came over here, right down here to where the spark plug is. I removed the cable, unscrewed the spark plug, cranked it over, and noticed it had spark. It then dawned on me to check the gas. It had been sitting for at least a couple of years and the gas was probably bad. So I opened up the fuel cap there. Gas was piss yellow and it was full of worms. So I drained the fuel tank. I then realized that I should probably have to clean out all the lines and probably clean out the carburetor as well. Drained all the old gas out of the tank, cleaned it out really well with the hose and sit it out to dry. Make sure you let the gas tank dry if you do that. You don't want to mix water and gas. As it was drying, I took all the fuel lines and I cleaned them out with alcohol and I blew them out with some compressed air. And then dawned on me that the fuel pump and the fuel filter were probably clogged up. Well, at least the fuel filter was. So this is my hypothesis. At the time, all those worms got into the fuel filter, which clogged up the fuel filter. When I turned the key, which primes the fuel pump, it was probably running dry. And when a fuel pump runs dry, that's how it burns out because it's not lubricated by any gas. I possibly had a bad fuel pump, definitely had bad gas, and definitely had a bad fuel filter. I ordered a new fuel pump on Amazon for $20. It's not an OEM Honda one, but it seemed to work pretty well. It's still in there now and it still works very well. And a new fuel filter as well. I hooked up the fuel, actually I just hooked up the fuel pump to a temporary tank I used out of a little sandwich container. Put a hose in there, primed it a couple times, and I removed the fuel line from the carburetor to see if it was pumping fuel. When I removed that, it was indeed pumping fuel. It was pumping very strong, in fact. So I knew that the fuel system was good. There was clean fuel in all of the lines. The fuel pump was good. So I decided to just put everything back together. Put the tank back in, put in some fresh gas in the tank, hook up the fuel filter, hook up the fuel pump. Everything was all well and dandy. Just for the hell of it, I tried it again with the fuel sender unit here plugged in. Still nothing. I turned my attention to the carburetor. It was definitely the carburetor. It had to be, because when I took off this vacuum cover here, poured gas directly into the carburetor and tried to start it, believe it or not, it would start. You know, it would start until the fuel all burned out of the carburetor and then it would stop. But I knew that the engine was running, and I knew that the engine was good, so it had to be the carburetor. I removed the carburetor, cleaned it out with carburetor cleaner, removed all the jets, sprayed all the ports, all the little nooks and crannies and crevices, all with carb cleaner, blew them all out with compressed air. It seemed to be fine. Put it all back together, nothing. However, I was getting something different. If I started it with the throttle all the way open, basically flooring it, it would start, it would run very rough, and it would not idle. So I took a look at the service manual, which is right here on my very dirty bench. Where did it go? I must have moved it. Anyway, I took a look at the service manual, which I will include in the description, by the way. It took me a while to find a free one. And even though it's for a 2005, like I stated earlier, they all use the same design. Some are slightly different, but they're all pretty much the same. Took a look at the owner's manual, and there's 3 jets. Actually, there's really 2 jets. There's the main jet, and then there's the idle jet. Took a look at the idle jet, and well, the idle jet probably had something to do with it clogging up. So took the idle jet out, tried to poke it through with the little guitar string, and got partially through, but still not completely through. After reinstalling the idle jet, I got a completely different result. When I would start it, it would start and then stall. It wouldn't matter if I had the throttle all the way open, and it wouldn't matter if I clogged up the air intake port as sort of like a choke. It would start and then would stall. So this is when I realized, it has to be the idle jet. So I went on the old Amazon.com and I picked up of course, I can't find it now, but I picked up a Honda Ruckus Carburetor Rebuild kit. It was like $20. I probably could have saved money by getting just the jet by itself on eBay for $5, but you know what? I was getting a little impatient and I wanted to ride this thing. So I ordered it, Amazon, $20. It came the next day, and I didn't even completely rebuild the carburetor either. This came with like the needle, all these valves and stuff. It came with everything. So I replaced the main jet as well as the idle jet. I also replaced the little seal that seals the bowl to the carb. And I also realized, it was at this point that I realized I needed to reset the computer because I had taken these sensors off and I had also unplugged them. And when you do that, also whenever you rebuild the carb in general, you have to reset the computer, which I believe is this thing right here. So I put it all back together and I reset the computer. And the way you do that is you get a jumper cable. This is a fairly high gauge, a pretty thick gauge jumper cable that is insulated because you stick one end into this little red connector, and it's the side with, that's the contact there. And then you stick the other end to the positive terminal of the battery. I know it sounds weird, that's how you do it. You then turn on the ignition and you watch the headlights, which of course aren't on right now, but this headlight will come on. It will then click off and then click back on after a certain amount of time. Once it does that, you can take the wire out and then you wait. And you wait and you wait and you wait until you hear another click, and then you hear the fuel pump priming. After I did that, I turned the key off, turned it back on, primed the fuel pump, turned the key off, turned it back on, primed the fuel pump, and, well, lo and behold, it fired right up. Now that was a bit of a rough start because this is the first time I've started it today, and that's the automatic choke making the engine idle up and then idle down, but it is strong. I noticed as I was riding it, it would kind of hesitate and it would sputter, and that's because the carburetor was on an angle. It was cocked on an angle, so I simply just kind of straightened it out, and that seemed to fix the problem. So, I hope that helps somebody out there with problems with a Honda Ruckus. Thank you for watching. I will have a good time with this bike now. If you have any questions, you can leave some in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, thanks for watching.